In this enthralling story, a young black woman unknowingly steps into a small town's volatile environment. But there's far more to her than meets the eye. Tensions reach a boiling point when two racist officers mistreat her unaware. She is the governor's newly appointed chief of staff. Get ready for an emotional roller coaster, filled with twists, suspense, and nail-biting drama that will keep you on the edge of your seat until the very end. Before diving into the story, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss the latest stories. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press 0. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Mia Thompson never imagined how drastically her life would change when she accepted the appointment as Chief of Staff for Governor Margaret Caldwell. A bright and compassionate leader, Mia had garnered a reputation for resolving seemingly impossible dilemmas. She prided herself on forging personal connections and championing equality in every sphere of life. As a young black woman working at the Georgia State Capitol in Atlanta, Mia's day-to-day existence was one of intense schedules, important meetings, and a steadfast commitment to bettering the community around her. So when Governor Caldwell asked Mia to make a surprise trip to the rural town of Pinewood Falls, an unassuming locale 2 hours south of Atlanta, she did so with excitement and a strong sense of purpose. The assignment itself was vaguely communicated. Mia was to engage with local authorities about a potential grant for community development. She anticipated friendly dialogue and genuine collaboration. Yet the moment she passed the city limits sign, the air seemed unnervingly different, as though secrets and unrest simmered beneath the surface of this small, unsuspecting town. Her first stop was a local diner called Harass's Homestyle Kitchen, a humble establishment beloved by Pinewood Falls residents for its hot biscuits and sweet tea. Although the place seemed welcoming at first glance, the moment Mia stepped in, conversation ground to a sudden halt. Every eye in the diner fell upon her, scanning her carefully pressed suit, the sleek black sedan parked outside, and most conspicuously her skin color. She could feel the weight of their stares as she approached the counter, determined not to show any sign of discomfort. Mrs. Doris Harris, the owner, observed Mia's professional attire with reserved curiosity. She managed a half smile and asked, "What can I get you, sugar?" Mia politely requested a coffee, trying to push past the tension. Yet before she could take the first sip, she overheard a table whispering about city folks with big attitudes who thought they were better than everyone else. Mia's gut churned, but she breathed deeply. She had endured such microaggressions before and knew better than to let them rattle her. After leaving the diner with a bitter taste in her mouth, one that went beyond the coffee, Mia headed to the Pinewood Falls Town Hall. She planned to meet with Mayor Russell Hicks, a man known for his old-school ways and deep roots in the community. Upon arrival, she found the building nearly deserted. A single clerk seated behind a worn reception desk warily eyed her. Mia introduced herself as an emissary from the governor's office and requested a meeting with the mayor. In a patronizing tone, the clerk pointed toward a narrow hallway, muttering, "He's probably in his office. Didn't say nothing about expecting a visitor." Mia straightened her shoulders, walked briskly down the hallway, and knocked on a wooden door that bore a tarnished plaque reading Mayor R. Hicks. She thought she heard shuffling inside, papers, rustling, a chair screeching across the floor, but no answer followed. Undeterred, she knocked again. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing Mayor Hicks with his eyebrows furrowed. His gaze flicked to Mia's face, then slowly traveled down, studying her tailored suit with measured suspicion. "Well, you aren't who I was expecting," Mayor Hicks mumbled, evidently annoyed. Mia smiled politely, introduced herself, and extended her hand. He offered only a cursory handshake before retreating behind his desk. She launched into an explanation of her role in the governor's office and the reason for her visit, a prospective state grant that could funnel millions of dollars into Pinewood Falls for infrastructure upgrades and job programs. To her dismay, the mayor responded with a dismissive wave and an offhand remark about state interference in local affairs. Mayor Hicks. Mia began adopting a calm tone she hoped would defuse his animosity. "This grant is an opportunity to partner with your town, not to dominate it. The governor wants to ensure every Georgia community thrives." But Hicks merely leaned back in his creaking swivel chair, squinting as though Mia were a fraud. He insisted that if the governor wanted to talk, she could call him directly. Mia took a measured breath, thanked the mayor for his time, and left without a single further word, both discouraged and perplexed by such an openly hostile reception. Mia checked her watch. She still had an hour or two before her scheduled meeting with Pinewood Falls Police Chief Larry Sanderson. Hoping to clear her head, she decided to drive around the outskirts of town to get a feel for the community. She navigated past dilapidated homes, overgrown lawns, and neglected storefronts. It was clear that Pinewood Falls was in dire need of economic revitalization, precisely what the state grant could provide if the mayor and local officials would cooperate. As she turned a corner by a rundown shopping plaza featuring a defunct Walmart sign, her phone buzzed. It was Governor Caldwell briefly checking in. Mia assured the governor she would do everything in her power to secure the mayor's support. When she ended the call, she let out a weary sigh. Despite the tension, Mia believed in Pinewood Falls. She'd seen other communities bounce back from similar adversity when given proper resources. Determined to persevere, she resolved to speak with the police chief and try once more to pave the way for the grant's acceptance. The Pinewood Falls Police Department building was small, a single-story structure with faded paint and a conspicuous lack of modern equipment. Mia had arranged to meet Chief Sanderson at 3:00 p.m., but upon stepping inside, she found the waiting area abandoned, except for a single receptionist who looked up from her phone startled. Mia introduced herself and asked for the chief. The receptionist squinted at Mia with something akin to skepticism before motioning to a bench. "He'll be out soon, I guess," she mumbled. Mia patiently took a seat, fiddling with her phone to read up on local news. After nearly half an hour, a towering figure emerged from a back office. Chief Larry Sanderson himself, wearing a well-worn uniform with a nameplate turned askew. His eyebrows shot up as he noticed Mia. When she approached with a polite smile and extended her hand, he returned the gesture with noticeable reluctance. "Chief Sanderson." "Thank you for meeting with me," Mia said. "I'm from Governor Caldwell's office. We're evaluating a grant." But before she could finish, the chief held up his palm, cutting her off. "Let's step outside," he muttered. Confused but obliging, Mia followed him into the parking lot behind the station. She could see a cluster of police cruisers parked haphazardly along with a couple of personal vehicles. The chief leaned in close, lowering his voice. "Look, Miss Thompson. Right, we don't need outsiders telling us how to run our town. I believe in law and order, done the right way, the Pinewood way." Mia remained calm. She explained that the grant was intended to fund additional training programs for officers, invest in community outreach, and improve policing methods for at-risk neighborhoods. She hoped to galvanize his interest by mentioning the potential for new equipment and vehicles. Yet the chief appeared more aggravated than persuaded. "This town's been just fine. We don't need a bunch of suits from Atlanta telling us what to do," he declared. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got real police work to attend to." Without a goodbye, Sanderson stormed back into the station. Mia stood there flabbergasted. She realized that forging alliances might be far more challenging than she had foreseen. Dusk was settling over Pinewood Falls by the time Mia decided to call it a day. She headed for her hotel on the outskirts of town, a modest chain establishment that had seen better days. Once inside her dimly lit room, Mia sank onto the bed exhausted. She mentally reviewed her interactions so far, the suspicious diner patrons, the dismissive mayor, the hostile police chief. None of them seemed eager to cooperate with the governor's plan to help revitalize the town. Determined not to let the day's obstacles derail her, Mia took a moment to call her mentor and friend Dr. Caroline Bridges, a political science professor at Emory University. Dr. Bridges listened intently, offering reassurance that Mia's relentless pursuit of equality and upliftment had earned her the chief of staff position for a reason. "Change never comes easy," Dr. Bridges said softly, "but it always starts with someone who refuses to give up." After the call, Mia felt a renewed sense of conviction. She prepared notes for a follow-up meeting, resolved to make the best of her second day in Pinewood Falls. However, the new day brought a far more sinister twist than Mia could have anticipated. Early the next morning, she rose to jog around the block, hoping to clear her head. Although her exercise gear was simple, a worn sweater and track pants, her very presence seemed to attract suspicion. She noticed a black and white cruiser slowly trailing her down Pine Street. The scowling face behind the wheel was Officer Todd Barnes. As soon as she slowed her pace, he switched on the vehicle's lights and screeched to a halt. Heart-pounding, Mia paused on the sidewalk. She'd done nothing wrong. This was merely harassment. Barnes stepped out, resting a hand on his holster. "Morning," he sneered. "Out for a run, I see. Where you from, stranger?" Mia's voice wavered slightly as she responded. "Atlanta." "I'm in town for work." Barnes shot her a disparaging look, asking if she had any ID. Suspecting trouble. Mia calmly explained she was staying at the local hotel and provided her driver's license. But the officer's scrutiny only hardened. He regarded Mia's ID as though it confirmed his worst assumptions. Before long, a second cruiser arrived, driven by Officer Diane Harrington, Barnes's partner. Barnes leaned in and whispered to Harrington, who glowered at Mia. In a matter of seconds, they demanded Mia put her hands on the hood of the cruiser. "You don't look like you're just out for a run. Need to make sure you're not carrying anything illegal." Incredulous, Mia tried to protest. "I'm the governor's," she began, but Barnes roughly cut her off, yanking her arms behind her back for a search. Harrington barked at her to keep quiet, claiming resisting an officer was grounds for arrest. Fury and fear churned within Mia. She could scarcely believe what was happening, two police officers openly discriminating, apparently determined to make her out to be a criminal. In the background, a few early rising residents peeked out of their houses. None intervened. The cold air stung Mia's cheeks as she stood pinned to the cruiser, her heart thumping. She realized that despite her high-ranking position in the governor's office, she was utterly vulnerable if these officers persisted in their unlawful harassment. A tense standoff ensued. Harrington was on the radio speaking in hushed tones about a suspected vagrant. Mia, still pressed against the hood, grit her teeth as Officer Barnes rifled through her pockets and patted her down in a method that felt profoundly invasive. Finally discovering nothing incriminating, Barnes grumbled and yanked Mia upright. "That's enough," Mia said, her voice trembling with anger. "I demand to speak to the chief of police." Both officers exchanged mocking glances as though they'd heard it all before from frustrated detainees. Then Harrington huffed and responded, "We don't take orders from you. Now why don't you head on back to your fancy hotel and stay out of trouble?" Mia fixed the pair with a defiant stare before turning to walk away. She clutched her ID in one hand, her smartphone in the other, silently daring the officers to confront her again. But Barnes and Harrington merely smirked, got back into their cruiser, and roared off down the street, leaving Mia alone with a swirl of outrage and indignation. Something about this morning's incident made her blood run cold. Shaken but resolute, Mia hurried back to the hotel, showered, and changed into her professional attire. She left 3 urgent voicemails at the governor's office, hoping Governor Caldwell or her deputy would call back soon. Although Mia possessed official credentials, she had been blindsided. She realized she needed local allies, or at least direct intervention from higher authorities, to navigate Pinewood Falls effectively. Later that morning, Mia walked to the town hall to see if she could glean more information about the local police department's conduct. At the reception desk, the same clerk from the previous day gave her a sidelong glance, apparently unimpressed by Mia's dogged efforts. "Mayor Hicks isn't in," the clerk said with a shrug. "He's out touring some farmland." Disappointed, Mia inquired about Chief Sanderson. The clerk grimaced, revealing that the chief was in a staff meeting. "You can try your luck there," she replied, pointing toward a cramped side conference room. Mia took a steadying breath and strode in that direction, determined to confront Sanderson about the morning's incident. She found the door ajar, revealing the chief and a handful of officers, including Barnes and Harrington, leaning over a table covered in maps. They were discussing traffic checkpoints. The chatter halted the moment Mia stepped in. An unmistakable tension laced the air. Officer Barnes glowered at her with open hostility, while Harrington crossed her arms defiantly. Chief Sanderson fixed Mia with a cold stare. "This is a private meeting, Ms. Thompson." "What do you want?" he demanded. Mustering her composure, Mia launched into the story of how officers Barnes and Harrington stopped and frisked her without cause that morning. She explained that she was in Pinewood Falls on official state business. Then, in clear, precise language, she warned that such misconduct could lead to serious repercussions. Sanderson's gaze flicked to Barnes and Harrington, who wore smug expressions. "My officers did their duty investigating suspicious behavior," he declared. "Now, if that's all, we have work to do." Mia's stomach churned at his dismissive tone. For a split second, she considered brandishing her state credentials and shouting her job title, but she knew it might escalate hostilities. Leaving town hall, Mia's mind whirled with scenarios. She glanced at the time, still hours before the governor was likely to call back. She decided to visit the local community center, a dilapidated one-story building that might offer her a chance to connect with residents who understood Pinewood Falls beyond the police perspective. At the center, she was welcomed by Regina Clark, a social worker who recognized the official state seal on Mia's briefcase. Regina led Mia to a small office brimming with battered furniture and stacks of donated clothing. There, over lukewarm coffee, Regina confessed that Pinewood Falls had a deep-rooted problem with police profiling. Especially if you were black or an outsider, harassment was almost guaranteed. "It's been that way since I was a kid," Regina lamented, eyes filled with exhaustion. Some officers take after the chief's old-school mentality, which has only gotten worse in recent years. Mia felt a surge of relief at finding someone willing to speak frankly. Regina added that if Mia wanted to turn the tide, she'd need to expose the abuses. "But be careful," she warned. "They don't play fair here." The warning echoed in Mia's mind later that evening when she noticed an unmarked car seemingly following her back to the hotel. She parked behind the building and snuck a glance in the rearview mirror. The car idled for several seconds before driving off. Mia's heart thudded anxiously. She hurried through the hotel lobby to her room, convinced that she had stirred a hornet's nest. Inside her room, she found that Governor Caldwell had finally called back. Mia immediately returned the call and relayed the entire saga: the diner, the mayor, and most critically, the harassment by local officers. The governor was furious, but instructed Mia to stay the course. "Document every instance of misconduct," Governor Caldwell advised. "If they want a fight, we'll give them a fight they won't forget. But first, see if there's any willingness to cooperate." Mia agreed, though she felt an uneasy chill. She sensed that Pinewood Falls might be on the brink of a scandal that could shake the entire town if the details reached the Atlanta Journal-Constitution or national news outlets like CNN. By the next morning, Mia's instincts told her she needed tangible evidence. That afternoon, she quietly arranged a meeting with a local journalist named Danielle Curry, who wrote for the Pinewood Falls Courier. Danielle had a reputation for fearlessly publishing stories on local corruption. They met at a small coffee shop adjacent to a shuttered gas station, an out-of-the-way spot where nobody from the mayor's office or police department was likely to drop by. Over cappuccinos, Danielle listened intently to Mia's account, occasionally nodding or scribbling notes in a battered notepad. "I've heard rumors for years," Danielle murmured. "People of color being pulled over for no reason, forced to pay trumped-up fines and threatened if they complained. But nobody's ever given me enough evidence to go public." Mia's shoulders tensed. She could sense the weight of Pinewood Falls' unspoken oppression. If Danielle ran a story, it could blow the lid off the entire department's culture. Mia vowed to get official documentation. She'd gather statements from victims, use her connections in the state government, and compile an airtight dossier that even Pinewood Falls officials couldn't dismiss. That evening, Mia received an unexpected phone call from an unidentified number. On the line was a trembling woman's voice claiming her name was Teresa Brown. Teresa confessed she had been harassed by Officer Barnes, repeatedly forced to pay arbitrary fines to avoid jail time. She claimed Barnes would target single black women, threatening them with trumped-up charges if they didn't comply with his extortion demands. "Please, you've got to help," Teresa pleaded. "But if anyone finds out I spoke, I'm done for." Mia promised to protect Teresa's identity. The conversation solidified Mia's resolve. She immediately notified Danielle, who agreed to record Teresa's testimony off the record. With each new piece of evidence, Mia felt more certain that systemic abuse was thriving under Chief Sanderson's watch. However, she remained acutely aware of the danger she was courting. If Barnes, Harrington, or even the chief discovered Mia's investigation, they might retaliate. Yet she pressed on. It wasn't just about Pinewood Falls anymore. It was about exposing a pattern of racism and injustice that had festered far too long. The storm finally broke one crisp evening when Mia arranged to meet Teresa Brown in a discreet corner of the Pinewood Falls Community Park. Towering oak trees and poorly lit pathways provided them relative privacy. Accompanied by Danielle Curry, who carried her hidden audio recorder. Mia waited anxiously beneath a flickering lamppost. Teresa arrived, darting her eyes around, nervously clutching a jacket around her shoulders. In hushed tones, Teresa recounted tales of Barnes demanding cash, Harrington ignoring calls for help, and even the mayor sweeping complaints under the rug. Each word dripped with sorrow, painting a grim portrait of a town held hostage by its own protectors. Danielle recorded every syllable. But just as Teresa finished her story, the strobing red and blue lights of a police cruiser sliced through the darkness. Barnes and Harrington emerged from the vehicle, shouting for everyone to freeze. Panic surged through Teresa, who bolted. Harrington promptly tackled her to the ground. Mia tried to intervene, only to have Barnes roughly shove her back. Danielle, though frightened, kept her phone recording, capturing every incriminating second of the officer's brutality. Rage boiled inside Mia. She'd witnessed enough. Mustering her courage, she flashed her official state credentials at the officer, shouting, "I'm Mia Thompson, Chief of Staff to Governor Margaret Caldwell, and I order you to stop." Barnes halted mid-swing, confusion twisting his features. The shock on Harrington's face was palpable as she realized the magnitude of their mistake. For a moment, silence fell, broken only by Teresa's sobs and Danielle's muffled gasp behind her phone's camera lens. When Barnes attempted to justify his actions, Mia cut him off. "I have every second of what you just did on video," she declared. "There will be repercussions." Harrington turned pale, her bravado vanishing instantly. Mia stepped closer, her voice trembling with anger. "It's over," she announced, flipping open her phone to speed dial Governor Caldwell. "And you're both done." Before Barnes could respond, the glare of headlights approached. A second patrol car with Chief Sanderson at the wheel rolled to a stop. Climbing out, he glared at the scene, Teresa on the ground, Harrington stunned, Barnes perplexed, and Mia seething with righteous fury. Sanderson demanded an explanation. Mia recounted the entire ordeal, from her harassment that morning to Teresa's testimony that was being recorded. Danielle, still filming on her phone, pointed it directly at the chief, capturing every detail. Sanderson's face grew ashen, realizing they had incriminated themselves. The next few minutes were a surreal blur. Governor Caldwell, still on the line, demanded to speak with Sanderson. Mia forced the phone into his hand. Behind them, more headlights appeared, marked units from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation (GBI) summoned by Caldwell's office. Barnes and Harrington exchanged terrified glances as GBI agents exited their vehicles, their expressions grim. Seizing Harrington's arms, they placed her in handcuffs. Another agent turned to Barnes, informing him he was under investigation for corruption, assault, and extortion. Unable to resist, Barnes allowed himself to be cuffed. As the GBI agents led the two officers away, Sanderson stood trembling. Governor Caldwell's voice echoed through the phone. "Chief Sanderson, you are hereby suspended pending a thorough investigation. I will not tolerate these abuses in my state." By midnight, news vans from WSB-TV and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had descended upon Pinewood Falls. The story broke fast and furious. Racist officers in a small Georgia town harassed and assaulted a young black woman, unaware she was the governor's chief of staff. Journalists interviewed Mia, who calmly and thoroughly explained the state's plan to revitalize Pinewood Falls while rooting out corruption. An entire network of claims surfaced from locals who had long been too afraid to speak. Mayor Hicks tried to distance himself from the scandal, claiming ignorance about the police force's behavior. But the press easily linked his complacency to the decades of unchecked misconduct. Under mounting pressure, the mayor announced he would cooperate fully with the GBI. Meanwhile, Regina Clark and other community members praised Mia for her bravery in exposing systemic racism. "We've been waiting for someone like her," Regina commented on camera. "Someone who actually cares." Within hours, Barnes and Harrington faced formal charges, and Sanderson's suspension was upgraded to immediate termination. The entire department braced for a sweeping overhaul as evidence of wrongdoing piled up. A week later, Mia returned to Pinewood Falls, this time accompanied by a team of state officials and the newly appointed interim police chief, Captain James Delaney, a seasoned officer known for his integrity. Together, they announced a comprehensive reform package, implicit bias training, community outreach initiatives, and a civilian oversight board. They also revealed plans to revitalize infrastructure, improve schools, and create job opportunities through the state grant that Mia had championed all along. Mayor Hicks, under intense scrutiny, stood sheepishly before the cameras, forced to read a statement of apology to the citizens of Pinewood Falls. When he stepped away from the podium, his face was flush with embarrassment, and he refused to meet Mia's eyes. Word had it that he faced a recall election, which many believed was overdue. In a remarkable turnaround, local residents seemed optimistic about the changes to come. They praised Mia for her role in exposing not only the corrupt officers, but also the systemic injustice that had plagued their community for far too long. As for Officer Todd Barnes and Officer Diane Harrington, justice arrived swiftly. Evidence of their misconduct, extortion, unjustified use of force, and a litany of racist comments captured in body cam footage amassed to the point of no defense. Within 2 months, they were convicted and handed prison sentences. Chief Sanderson, implicated in multiple counts of negligence and conspiracy, faced his own trial. The day of his guilty verdict marked a major victory for civil rights advocates throughout Georgia. Mia Thompson found herself lauded as a hero. Governor Caldwell praised her in a public statement, thanking her for bravely confronting the discrimination and corruption that threatened the very fabric of Pinewood Falls. News outlets nationwide picked up the story, shining a bright light on the crucial role that local journalism and unwavering determination can play in reforming broken systems. Through it all, Mia remained humble, crediting the courageous locals like Teresa Brown and Regina Clark, who risked their safety to tell the truth and demand accountability from those sworn to protect and serve. In the following months, Pinewood Falls began its slow but hopeful transformation. New businesses trickled in, attracted by the promise of safer streets and potential state funding. Regina Clark expanded the community center's outreach programs, offering tutoring for children and re-entry assistance for those leaving incarceration. State and local leaders broke ground on a renewed library and a modern recreational facility, symbols of a town emerging from the shadows of its past. Meanwhile, Mia received messages of gratitude from across Georgia and beyond. Some thanked her for exposing corruption. Others simply found inspiration in her courage. She would often reflect on those harrowing days, the sting of humiliating searches, the terror of being pinned to a police cruiser, the fear in Teresa's eyes. All of it fueled her commitment to fight for justice on a broader scale, reaffirming why she had accepted the role of chief of staff to begin with. She saw in Pinewood Falls an emblem of resilience and a lesson that tyranny can be toppled when good people stand firm. Ironically, it was in that same diner, Harris's home-style kitchen, where Mia and her new allies gathered to celebrate the town's fresh start. This time, the patrons who once fell silent and stared now greeted her with cautious respect. Mia sipped sweet tea and listened as Regina, Danielle, and even a few local teens shared stories of hope. The conversation buzzed with talk of new educational programs, job training, and improved healthcare clinics on the horizon. Mrs. Doris Harris approached the table, offering slices of apple pie on the house. "Thanks for shining a light in this town," she said softly, unable to fully meet Mia's gaze. Mia nodded in gratitude, sensing a genuine desire for reconciliation. The tension that once choked the air had begun to dissipate, replaced by a fragile yet tangible optimism. Pinewood Falls had a long way to go, but progress at least was no longer an impossible dream. Looking around the table at the people who had come together under extraordinary circumstances, Mia felt a surge of pride, knowing that karmic justice had finally been served. Thank you for joining us on this gripping journey of one woman's courage in the face of blatant injustice. If you found yourself inspired or outraged by the twists and turns in Pinewood Falls, please consider hitting the like button and sharing this video. We rely on you, our viewers, to spread awareness and spark positive change in communities that need it most. And if you'd like to stay connected to more stirring narratives like this one, be sure to subscribe to our channel. Every new subscriber helps us continue telling stories that uplift the voiceless and shed light on hidden truths.